glad to talk with Naomi this morning. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so first of all, hi everyone. Thank you all for joining us via Zoom today. I know this is not the most ideal circumstances, but I think this is a pretty great solution for sure. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about the Center for Community Engagement on Service Learning. We call it CECL on campus. There's a lot of acronyms. You'll develop a pretty good decoding system for them over time.
Mm-hmm.
But before we get started, I think everyone is doing a really good job, but just making sure that you're muting your microphone. We are recording this so that people and other prospective students can come and watch us at a later date. So I don't want there to be too much background noise. So if everyone could do that, that would be awesome. And if you have any questions at all that come up during this, feel free to put them in the chat section, and Katie and I can answer them towards the end of the session. So feel free to just put them right in the chat and we'll have that open and draw upon those towards the end of the session. So my name is Naomi. I'm a current sophomore at Hobart and William Smith. I'm originally from Portland, Maine. That's where I am right now. And I'm a double major in political science and religious studies with a minor in Latin American studies. On campus, I'm involved quite a bit through CECL, Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning, but I also work in the Office of Admissions. So if you have any admissions questions, we have Allison Boland, who's also on this call, that can answer them. I can probably answer some of them as well. Maybe some of you guys I gave a tour to, which would be super cool. But I also help, and I'm the student leader for the pre-orientation adventure program. So that's something that incoming first years can participate in. I participated in and then now led. And I also am part of our Centennial Center for Leadership LEAD certification program. So I'm involved in a couple offices on campus. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to direct them to the chat and we can answer those. But today I'm here with Katie Flowers, who is the director of the Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning. So Katie, do you just kind of want to say hi? There are a couple of people that joined us, so maybe reintroducing yourself.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Naomi, for taking us on this cyber journey together. I've just wanted to welcome you all to this Zoom call and just express my empathy about the situation for your, where you are in your high school career right now and how challenging that must be. And just really applaud efforts to embrace this resilient opportunity to, continue on your college search process. And we're glad to be here this morning. Representing the community engagement and service learning hat. We're on the second floor of Trinity Hall. So if you visited campus, we're one floor above where career services is and one floor below the Center for Global Education, which is called Study Abroad. So again, welcome. My name's Katie. I oversee our Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning, which, as Naomi mentioned, is called CECL because we love acronyms.
Sure do. My sister's a senior in high school, so I totally get everyone's pain, and I'm now living with the post-prom, postponement, downward spiral, but it's all going to be good, and this is awesome. So, Katie, to get us started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the work that you do both at Hobart and William Smith and in the Geneva community?
Sure. So nice to meet you all, chat with you this morning. I have been at HWS for 15 years. I'm originally from New Hampshire. I went to school in Massachusetts. And then I went to grad school in Buffalo. And I have to be honest with you, I thought that I would be in Geneva for a couple years and then head back to New England. But the Finger Lakes region are absolutely gorgeous, and the community of Geneva is more than I could have anticipated. Beyond what you are all realizing about the Hobart and William Smith community is that it's a very special place. So my family's all over the place: Philly, DC, Boston, New Hampshire, and honestly, every year that they come here for reunions because it's a gorgeous place. So after 15 years, I have continued on in this position in community engagement and service learning because I love it. I get to work with college students as they make connections between what they're interested in, what they're concerned about, and the Geneva community, whether it's through a community service opportunity or through a course in environmental studies or social justice policy. It's just really, my pleasure and my just distinct privileged to have this position. Sorry, my
Awesome.
phone's going off in the background, and my 12-year-old is in class right now, so we're all in it together.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so something that we talk about on tours every single time we stop by Trinity Hall is that 100% of our students are going to participate in some sort of community engagement, community service during their time at HWS. Can you kind of explain the information behind that statistic?
Sure. So proudly, as part of orientation weekend, we want you to get to know your academic advisors, and we want you to become familiar with course, registration and getting your ID card, and where is everything? All super important. But I think in addition to situating yourself as a HWS community member, we just want to reiterate what you already know about us, and that we are proud to collaborate with our Geneva community. So built into orientation weekend is a commitment to partner with Geneva. So folks get on buses or walk to different sites. We're a uniquely urban community of about 13,000. So some of the partners are local churches, soup kitchens, environmental stewardship, cleanup opportunities. Others, maybe you would take a little bit of a bus to clean up a trailway, or help out with a variety of other nonprofit agencies. But we just want folks to see yourselves as Genevans, as Finger Lakes community members, very much the same way you would see yourself as an HWS student. And so the way that we do that is by incorporating service into orientation weekend. So Saturday morning of service, everybody meets on the quad. You hear from the president. We sometimes hear from the mayor of the community, and they're so glad to meet you. 2,000 people, 500 or so freshmen every year, and it's just it's a statement about who we are as a college community to partner with our host community, Geneva, New York.
Awesome. Yeah, I really enjoyed my day of service. I think I cleaned out a barn at a 4-H camp.
Oh, it's so appropriate because you love horses.
There were no animals. I was kind of disappointed,
sorry.
but that's okay. It was actually a really great opportunity because you're in your orientation groups for so long.
Mm-hmm.
Our orientation group went with another orientation group, and so it was a really great way to kind of expand, and like when you're moving stuff in and out of a barn, it's a pretty good bonding experience. That's cool. So that's awesome. So I know for me when I was going through my college process, I used to say, which is super cheesy, but like community service was kind of my like 3-season sport. Like I did it all year long in high school. That was kind of my thing. And so it was really important for me to go to school in a place that was engaged with its community. And there were a lot of opportunities for students to engage in both community on campus and also off campus. We don't just live on campus, we live in Geneva. And so like that was a really important thing for me when I was trying to decide where I wanted to go to school. So can you talk a little bit about ways that first year students can get involved in your office, and also some of the programming that you offer for students?
Absolutely. And if folks want to check out our webpage while I'm chatting, feel free to go to hws.edu, and then the tab academics, and then on the left, the Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning. So just to summarize, we organize things through essentially a bucket of 4: community service, as I mentioned, part of orientation, and other days throughout the year, days of service. But that would lead to more civic engagement opportunities, which are more of a sustained opportunity. So that might look like one of our more popular programs is called America Reads and the HWS Tutor Corps, where students don't have to choose between a work-study job and tutoring a local child in literacy or homework help. They could become a tutor and help pay for school at the same time. So we have about 100 students that work with 6 of our local schools before, during, or after school, depending on the schedule. Transportation is provided, and you get paid $11.80 an hour to do that. So that's a popular program. We also have a Big Brothers Big Sisters chapter. So folks are often familiar with that concept of partnering with or getting paired with a local student and meeting with them for an hour a week, building on some of our other popular youth programs. We have a Geneva Heroes partnership with a local middle school to kind of, on Saturdays during the spring semester, folks can do service together. And then service learning classes, where you have a class like economics of caring, and Naomi, you'll have to tell me if you've taken a service learning class, or maybe you're taking econ of caring, and then you start thinking about how do nonprofits impact the local economy. So you look at the hospital, you look at schools, you look at churches, and you understand how that fits into the Geneva community. So lots of service learning classes. We have a designation SLC for students to look into that on the course registration page if they like learning that way. I know I always liked hands-on learning, experiential education. So service learning is an example of civic engagement. And then guiding up to civic leadership, where you take on a project, you take on a leadership role, so you really see yourself as part of the solution, and then progressing towards a life of consequence. So, what might that mean if you served food at the local soup kitchen during your freshman orientation, and then you start thinking about food security, and you start picturing yourself in this beautiful agricultural area and farming, and the disconnect between rural or urban poverty, and then you do a research project on mapping what resources folks from lower incomes have with respect to fresh produce. So that's kind of an example of how you tier up, TIER, not tier, with how to see yourself as part of the solution. So for CoOp, I'll briefly mention it, and then Naomi can share more. We talked a little bit about orientation weekend, but before orientation, folks are welcome to apply to join pre-orientation adventure program, CoOp. And so as a participant, Naomi had a, I think, positive experience, and then she applied to be a CoOp guide. So then she came back and facilitated that experience for other first years. So that's kind of an example of a program leading to a leadership within it. So I don't know if you wanted to speak briefly about CoOp, or if you had questions about other.
Yeah,
programs.
no, I mean, I'm a big advocate of CoOp.
I love that about you.
When I first decided to do a pre-orientation program as a first year, and I signed up for the community service one, not the Adirondack backpacking or kayaking or anything like that, I was like, oh, this is gonna be great. I can wander around the Geneva community, really get to know people. And then all of a sudden I was being shipped off to Montezuma Audubon Center and was told that I need to pick invasive species, and I need to
rubber band ducks.
Yeah, band ducks. That was a big one. So it was definitely not.
We're keeping it real, people. Keeping it real.
Keeping it real, but in the best way. I don't really know how to explain it. It was so nice. Not only did I have an amazing group of people in my group. I'm still friends with literally all of them today. They have maintained kind of being my core group of friends at school. But also I had two really awesome co-guides. One of them was a sophomore, one of them was a senior, and it was so nice when I was going, through my first year, and I brought my car to campus, and then I got a flat tire 2 days into having my car on campus, and I was able to reach out to that senior who was one of my co-op guides, and she was like, oh, well, you have to take it to this place. They're really great. They'll get it done, things like that. It not only being able to engage with the community, but also gaining that kind of structure and facilitating the culture of being around other people who are also engaging in the community in a variety of ways. And then being able to come back this year and having my own group of first years, and I co-led with a couple people. One of them was my really, really good friend, Izzy, who I met during CoOp my first year, and it was really kind of a full circle moment. And getting to see, not only go through the steps of, meeting all of these first years, seeing them really warming up to campus, getting to know each other. We worked with Montezuma Audubon Center again, but then we also had the opportunity to work on a couple builds and things through Habitat for Humanity of Ontario County. And so it was really awesome to see them connect with people and getting their hands dirty on things. And now a bunch of them have actually snuck their way onto the board of our Habitat for Humanity club on campus. And so it's really cool to see them continue that work after CoOp all this year. So it's a really awesome program. I highly, highly recommend wherever you end up participating in a pre-orientation program. It totally changed my first year experience. So highly, highly
And
recommend.
then the ways in which that you keep track of your first years that you've since led the trip. It's a joy to watch. But I'm glad you mentioned Habitat for Humanity. Often I think high school students are familiar with Habitat, and so as you mentioned, that is sometimes a CoOp trip, but also an active club on campus. And then another example of civic engagement to civic leadership, the students who are able to join the Habitat board of directors, which you often think, well, it's not only for, retirees or bank executives or people, no, they want to hear from college students. And we work with the Leadership Center as part of their leadership certificate and the practicum, so that like what you're talking about could be connected to the leadership program.
Yeah, no, for sure. There are lots of opportunities, and it's really cool when I sit through my public speaking class that I'm in right now, which is part of my certificate program through the Centennial Center, to hear some of the students. There are a lot of upperclassmen, seniors, juniors, but also a couple sophomores like myself who are doing some really cool things, connecting, our Center for Community Engagement with the leadership program. So they're having a plethora of opportunities to get your practicum, which is part of your certificate, done through that, which is really cool to see what people come up with a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so to just kind of expand on that, if we have anything more to expand on, so how does your office connect students to the city of Geneva? We've talked a little bit about how HWS as a whole, we have our programs. I was an America Reads tutor. I had a really great time being an America Reads tutor. Actually, my America Reads tutor kid was a son of a professor that was on campus in the math department. And it's so fun because he literally comes to every single school event I've ever been to. And he's just the cutest thing. And it's so fun to see him there. He goes to every single play, every single sporting event. So that's a pretty good example of Geneva and HWS melding together because our professors live right in the community and our staff. But are there any other ways, maybe on the more community, the more community engagement, service learning, civic engagement stuff, that are opportunities for students to get involved in the Geneva community?
Sure, absolutely. And I just wanted to extend a welcome to folks who have just joined. My name is Katie Flowers. I oversee the Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning, and Naomi is doing a phenomenal job. Sophomore, homebound in Maine right now, so thank you to those who've just joined on. We're talking about the community of Geneva and how students engage. So just thinking most recently, Williamson senior Alex Greenberg, you probably know her, Naomi. She was interested in the census. We couldn't have imagined the ways in which things would have changed for April 2020, but realizing as an HWS student, as a Genevan, for 4 years, students count in Geneva. So we worked with residential education, we worked with the city to kind of ensure that our students are counted. She worked on a social media campaign. She attended meetings at the public library to, just ensure communication and equity of representation. Because when you're a city of 13,000, 2,000 college students, of course, that represents a portion of your demographics and your budget and all of those implications. So Alex took that on as a public policy major, and she's just doing a phenomenal job, especially with the adjustment of, shifting to social media. So that's directly a way that we're connecting right now. A couple weeks ago, right before we dismissed for spring break, but we partnered with a national initiative called Congress to Campus. So for folks of you, hopefully all of you are, if you're able, when you turn 18, register to vote. But that's kind of like the tip of the iceberg. So we have a group called HWS Votes. We try to make voter registration really easy. So if you're turning 18 as you're graduating, and it's also part of the orientation weekend where you can register online. But making sure that you also cast your ballot. So if you want to register locally in Geneva, that's another way we connect with our partners in Geneva, or you might want to do absentee ballots. We want to make sure that you have the information available to do that. But Congress to Campus is when former congressional leaders talk to college campus students. So they visit all tons of colleges. You can check them out, Congress to Campus online. And so we had 2 former congressional leaders come to campus, a Republican from upstate New York and a Democrat from Southern California. And they visited 10 classes, engaged probably over 300 people. But in addition to that, we had a panel discussion with our community members. Like, there's really not much we do where we don't extend the invite to our Geneva partners, whether it's co-created, whether it's hosted in the community, whether we want to make sure that it's, culturally sensitive to, conversations in our campus and extended community. We're a very diverse community. I'd encourage you to check out the demographics of Geneva. We're a lot more like a larger city in a smaller population. So Syracuse or Rochester are on either ends of us, and our demographics in terms of diversity are more reflective of a larger community like that. So it's just really interesting the ways in which this small liberal arts college can interact on a more really, robust, diverse setting. So Congress to Campus, people come to campus, and I think you said it well, Naomi, when you're talking about the child that you tutor in America Reads, and then he comes to campus for probably the school plays or the athletic events. All of our athletic events on campus are free to the community, so we're always encouraging local kids to come on campus, because we just want to make sure that they see themselves as future college students. We're not trying to indoctrinate, come to Hobart William Smith, but we want to partner with our local schools to make sure that kids are college ready. So we have an initiative called Geneva 2020 where there's a lot to it, but in terms of how it impacts the student population, we bring every 2nd, 6th, and 9th grader to campus. And it's really fun when the college students, I think, become lunch buddies or tour guides or just impromptu conversations about what it's like to be a college student. Because when you're 2nd grade, 6th grade, and 9th grade, you can appreciate the ways that talking to a college student is pretty profound in ways that as a parent, I can say, Colleen, it's really important to read, or please make sure that you do this. Okay, mom, insert eye roll here. But then, Naomi says it, and then all of a sudden people stand at attention. Oh, I should pay attention. Or what is an internship? Like if you haven't heard about an internship or study abroad when you're in 9th grade and a cool HWS student tells you about it, sky's the limit. So there's lots of different ways that we engage with the community. Those are just a couple. I know we spoke a little bit about Geneva Reads. There's research projects where students partner with local agencies to impact efficacy, whether it's a SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunities, threats, whether it's an analysis of how programs are done, some sophisticated work that our students do in partnerships with city, municipal or a nonprofit partners. Because often you can imagine nonprofits don't have a huge budget. So here you have this, wonderful major of insert here, environmental studies, chemistry, social justice studies, environmental studies, and that research project becomes something that you as an agency leader or mayor or city councilor can act upon. So it's relevant information, and it's part of your coursework. So I could go on and on. I don't want to bore people, but there's so many ways to engage with Geneva, and they love working with HWS students because students have a lot of choices to go to college, and they just are so excited. You're from Maine. You came all the way from Maine, Naomi. How'd you pick Geneva? That Genevans want to know, and you're going to run into them at Wegmans, so you might as well become buddies.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's so funny. I run into so many people who are from New England originally, and have now turned into Bills fans, which I have mixed feelings about, but that's okay. But
now that Brady's going to Florida with, who plays for the Buccaneers is a Hobart football grad. Yes.
Oh,
Great
cool.
hair.
Yeah. So yeah, don't even get me started on that. It's too early in the morning for that. But yeah, that's so funny. So quickly for those who have joined us, if you have any questions for Katie or I, we also have admission staff here as well. Feel free to put your questions in the chat and we will answer them. So for you, Katie, you talked a little bit about Alex. Love Alex. We actually were
You knew her.
marched together, which is, for those who are on the line, a really cool trip that we run through our religious studies department that goes to Eastern Europe with Holocaust survivor students and community members, both alumni and Geneva community members, which is really cool, but has now been postponed for 2021. So
Right.
okay.
I like that you said postponed and not canceled.
It's
It'll happen.
not canceled. It's not canceled. Don't worry. It's actually really cool. We're still doing all of our Readers College or half credit college classes on Zoom, and everyone's showing up, and we're just chatting, and it's great. So,
Cool.
for those students who are seniors and want to continue doing community service post-graduation, what kind of things does your office do to help our students continue their service post-graduation?
Sure, great question. Well, we work closely with Career Services, which I mentioned is one floor down in Trinity Hall, to highlight the ways in which your community service, your civic leadership work can translate into roles in various nonprofits. I think that, if you can demonstrate on a interview that you worked with Habitat for Humanity, to use the earlier example, or a local food distribution effort to maximize access to homebound elders during the COVID pandemic, those are skills that we've always needed, but we need them moving forward as a society. So lots of different ways that your service learning, your community-based research work translates well throughout the job search process. And I love working with my friends in Career Services, one floor down. But specifically, we do a lot of AmeriCorps and Peace Corps recruitment and information sessions and panels. So for folks who might not be familiar with AmeriCorps, it's a 1-year postgraduate year of service. I did it after college, big fan. I served for a year in Worcester, Massachusetts. Worcester, if you're from Mass, right, Naomi. New England is talk funny. Just kidding, I'm saying that because I am one. So that is a national program, and sometimes it's referred to as Domestic Peace Corps. A lot of people are familiar with Peace Corps. It's 2 years of service overseas, so AmeriCorps is 1 year domestic. However, I think sometimes people don't always know that AmeriCorps is also available in the summer. So you can do a 300-hour summer program, and HWS, you should be proud, Naomi, you probably already know this because we work together, but of the 3,000 plus colleges in the country, only 100 match AmeriCorps awards for currently enrolled students. So HWS is one of those. So for the students listening, you could do an AmeriCorps summer program, AmeriCorps.gov. Contact me if you need some advice. It's also listed on our webpage under Gap Year. It's a search engine. You would get a stipend, and then you also get an education voucher. And that education voucher, when you send it in with your tuition payment, it gets matched. So there's post-grad service, which I know we're talking about now, but there's also summer AmeriCorps programs so that you could do that at any point throughout your 4 years in college. Yeah, lots of our alum go on to serve in AmeriCorps. So proud of all of the amazing ways they contribute. Sweller, do you remember Sweller?
Yeah.
She's serving at Rochester Youth Year. It's a partnership we have with our neighbors an hour to the west, but we're parts of lots of different consortiums, and AmeriCorps is such a noble way to both contribute to the community, but also you gain so many skills. You get a stipend of about $12,000, and then you also get $6,000 towards your undergrad bills, or you can bank that for 7 years to apply for to use towards grad school. So AmeriCorps can't say enough about it. It's a phenomenal program. It's like study abroad. I never meet anybody that regrets doing AmeriCorps. They're just so glad to be part of the AmeriCorps family. And similarly with Peace Corps, we have a very robust cohort of, they're called RPCVs, Returned Peace Corps Volunteers. So we have a lot of HWS alumni that have served with the Peace Corps. We have a Facebook group of HWS Returned Peace Corps volunteers, and they're just very supportive of each other, especially during this challenging time, because you probably have heard that Peace Corps volunteers have all had to return home, regardless of what country you're in. So President Mark Urin, President Emeritus, our former president, he was the director of the Peace Corps. So we've had a long-standing partnership. We've had many Peace Corps directors speak on campus. We've had an AmeriCorps director speak on campus. Really strong connections with national service. And again, if you're interested in doing AmeriCorps as a summer option, you don't have to wait until after you graduate. Check out our webpage under the Gap Year programs, academics, and then go to community engagement and service learning, and then Gap Year, and you could find different ways to do AmeriCorps over the summer, and then apply that voucher to Hobart Langston's tuition to get matched.
Okay, so we have a couple questions in our chat,
Sure.
which is awesome. So the first one is there a community service cohort for students who want to work on year-long service initiatives?
Love it. We have a wonderful group of civic leaders. So for students that have served as a tutor in America Reads or HWS Tutor Corps, they would then apply to become the civic leader for literacy. So we have a cohort of 30 students that are our civic leaders, all overseeing different civic initiatives. Again, keeping with the Habitat example, you could be in the Habitat Club. If you're the club leader of Habitat for Humanity, you'd be considered a civic leader. So yes, we have a cohort of civic leaders, usually, sophomore, junior, seniors, and they work together to organize, collaborate, and respond to community opportunities in Geneva and Finger Lakes area. However, I'm so glad for this question, because my friends at admissions will know more, but this is the first year that we're launching a civic engagement scholarship, which I believe is $20,000. So we're going to build a cohort with the recipients of the class of 2024 who receive that scholarship. And it'll be a really fabulous way to kind of partner with our civic leader cohort with a younger group of students. Great question.
That's awesome. Wow. Okay, so the second question that we have is, how do the opportunities differ for Centennial Scholars? So for those of you who don't know, Centennial Scholars is a scholarship that's run through the Centennial Center for Leadership, but they do have some more kind of requirements or things that we want you guys to engage with. One of them is some type of service. So Katie, are there any opportunities for Centennial Scholars particularly, or do they kind of choose from the same range as everyone else?
We work really closely with the Centennial Center. So a lot of the programs are offered in collaboration. So Kate Finn, if folks have met her on the tour or have heard from her, she has a menu of sorts, like a point system. And so CECL, Community Engagement and Service Learning, will put forth programs and opportunities that are part of their Centennial certificate. But I just realized that the scholar program is probably different than the certificate. I think you probably know more than I do, but I think Centennial Scholars are encouraged to be part of the certificate program, but I don't think that they have to be. Do you know?
Yeah, so I actually don't know the specific requirements for the Centennial Scholarship particularly. Actually, Carling Landesh, who's one of our admissions worker, but also very involved in CECL, kind of led the last Centennial Scholar cohort. And also I'm sure Kate Finn would be able to give you some more details. But in terms of practicums, a lot of the Centennial Scholars will do the certificate program. I don't know if it's absolutely required, but I know that a lot of the people in my classes are Centennial Scholars, and in which case you do have to do a practicum. There are a couple ways to do it. A lot of people do opt to do a community service one, which is kind of what Katie was talking about. She'll offer a bunch of programs that you can kind of choose from, and Kate will approve, and they do have to be, you are in some sort of leadership role. That's kind of the whole point of it, is that you're getting that leadership experience. But yeah, that's primarily run through the Centennial Center. And so Kate Finn or Amy Forbes would probably be able to answer those. And they're very available via email and such. So I would highly recommend reaching out to them for that kind of stuff. Awesome. These are great questions.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let me see.
Well, while you're looking through the questions, I just also wanted to mention when you mentioned the remembrance trip to Germany and Poland as postponed. We also have alternative spring break trips. So sometimes I hear or I chat with first years who, are adjusting to life on college campus, and spring semester comes around and they're like, all right, yeah, I've been meaning to sign up or apply. And so spring break tends to be a chance for people who maybe the fall semester didn't get the opportunity to get to know a service cohort or participate. And we have trips to Virginia. If you are an outdoors person, it's in partnership with Pocahontas State Park. So you can do trail maintenance and reconstruction efforts at a state park an hour north of the North Carolina border. So it's right near Richmond. And then there's a trip to North Carolina, working with a really rural school there. And it's a unique partnership where I think nowadays, if I were to cold call a school and say, hey, I got a bunch of, students that want to help out, schools understandably have a lot of priorities and concerns, and this is even before COVID-19, that they might say, I'm sorry, we can't do that security, background, what have you. But we've had this partnership with the school for well over 20 years, and every year, when are the HWS students coming? And so that's another way to enjoy a service cohort during a confined amount of time, which, we call it alternative spring break. Sometimes college students get a unfair reputation, I think, Naomi, for being partiers on spring break. But service trips, I think, are a fun way to kind of engage the best parts of the ideals of service and your college experience. We had a trip to Guatemala planned, which So Brian Ashdown, a psychology professor on campus, has a longstanding partnership with a nonprofit in Antigua, Guatemala. And so unfortunately, we did have to postpone that trip, but I'm sure we'll reboot for next year and continue on with that. But interestingly, about the Guatemala trip, the students applied for funding from student government and received $12,000. So I think they were going to each have to pay $100 each to go on this Guatemala trip. So we're disappointed, but we had to keep everybody safe. So obviously that will be postponed for another year. But if ASB, alternative spring break trips, are something that you guys want to think about, we'd love to have you go on an existing trip, or can maybe pitch an idea, and we'd be happy to help support you to serve in a community and help you organize that.
Yeah, so something that I just kind of want to acknowledge as an overarching theme is that obviously we have CECL, which is awesome, and it conducts all these programs, but partially community service and civic engagement is just a culture on campus, and it's integrated into so many different facets of things. We had a question about theme houses and kind of what they are. Basically, for those who don't know, it's a housing option on campus. Starting your sophomore year, you can apply. Each theme house has a theme, and a lot of them are actually tied to community initiatives. So a lot of our theme houses the entire house will go volunteer somewhere. They'll participate in our day of services, which happen twice a year. And then also, they maybe are donating money from events that they're running, things like that. So not only are their programs run through Cecil, and obviously Katie has a hand in kind of organizing most of those things, but also it's just a huge campus culture that we have, and one of the things that really attracted me to HWS personally. So pretty much everywhere you look, both academically, co-curricularly, things like that, you will find community service kind of ingrained in the student body, which is something that I really appreciate about HWS. Okay, so we're running out of time. So I'm gonna kind of wrap it up. For those who were not able to ask questions or we were not able to address them, I am gonna put my email in the chat function.
I'll put mine as well. Yep.
Yeah, and it's also, hers is on the Cecil website. So feel free to reach out to us at any point. And we would love to answer any following questions that you have. I can talk a little bit about my student experience. It doesn't just have to be about Cecil or community service. I'm now almost done with 2 years, which is crazy, halfway done, but I've already gone through, the abroad process, things like that. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to let me know. Thank you so much for joining us, and I really hope to see you guys on campus as first years in the fall. I highly recommend CoOp, and feel free to reach out to your admissions counselors if you have any follow-up questions about on a more individual basis as well. But thank you guys all so much for coming, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Naomi. You did a great job. Good luck, everybody. We're thinking about all of our high school friends and what you're going through right now. So reach out, community engagement, service learning, visit. Geneva's gorgeous, and I hope that when things settle down, we'll see you on campus. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.